Merry Christmas, everyone! Today I'm going to be sharing with you guys a Harry Potter board game that I made as a Christmas present for my wife. Without further ado, let's get log 3 rolling. So this year, as my wife and I prepared for Christmas and started thinking about what gifts we were going to give each other, we realized there was an issue. Gifts cost a lot of money, and we don't have a whole lot of it. So my wife came up with the idea, what if we just made each other gifts? And at first I was a little worried. I'm not much of an artist. I don't really paint. I don't really draw. I don't really build things. But one thing that I am pretty confident in is my ability to create fantasy things and games. I love board games. I love card games. And so I started thinking to myself, is there a game I can make for her? And it just so happens that we've been having conversations about how we don't really like playing board games where we're playing against each other. We'd rather play cooperatively. And lately we had even mentioned it would be really cool if there was a cooperative Harry Potter game we could play together. Now I'm sure that game exists somewhere. I'm sure that it's done very well and that it's really fun and that we would enjoy it. But she said she wanted me to make something, and I thought it would be really cool if I made a Harry Potter board game where we could play cooperatively. And turns out it's a lot more work than I expected it to be. And here we are, nearly 40 hours later. At the time of me making this video, I only have one thing left to do. I just need to paint the dice and then it's ready to be given to her. So today is going to be part 1 out of 2 about this board game that I created. In this video I'm going to show you how I made it, and in the next video I'm going to show you how to play it. So when I first started coming up with the concept of the game, I was kind of initially thinking it would be cool if it was in Hogwarts, because there's a lot of notable locations in Hogwarts and there's lots of history there. And so I started thinking of cool events that it could be tagged along with, and I thought, what if it was like the Battle of Hogwarts and you had to like destroy the Horcruxes and then you could kill Voldemort. But I didn't think that had much replayability, and I wanted it to be a little more open-ended. What I decided I liked better was a game where you were stuck outside of the dorm room at night and you had to explore the castle, not get caught by professors, and last a certain amount of time that would represent not being caught throughout the night. And I'm pretty pleased with what I had. So I'm going to show you the different things that I've created and kind of walk you through how I did it. So the first thing that I created was the cards. I just opened a Word document and I planned out all of the different cards that were going to be in the game. There would be item cards and object cards, and there would be event cards and location cards. I really wanted it to have a lot of different aspects to the game that would make it as fun and replayable as possible. So I added a lot of variety. As it had turned out, I had already created cards in the past for D&D magic spells, and so I used that template and I just replaced the background and I created a completely new front of the card so that it would look like a playing card. And here's what I have. The regular deck has the Marauder's map on the back, and on the front it has a description of the card, as well as the name, a picture. There's a whole lot of these. So there's 2 of these. These are the draw pile. There's about 160 of them. And then I created location cards, and this is what they look like. Sorry, I'm trying to hold it so it's not super bright. And they have like a location, and each one does like a different thing. It kind of just changes the way that a round works. Lastly, I made it so that at the end of each round, there would be some sort of event. Maybe it would be a professor, maybe it would be something good. And so these cards have this back. And on the front, it has a description, a picture, and a name of what the event is. The process of doing this actually took me a really, really long time. I didn't realize that there'd be so much math included in this, but as I was creating the cards, I realized that you needed to be able to get a card a certain amount of the time. So if you got a professor card too much, you would end up not liking the game because you would lose. If you didn't get it enough, the game wouldn't be challenging enough. If you only had a certain amount of cards that were good and you never really got those, then it would be frustrating. And if you had a plethora of really good cards, then there would never be any challenge. So I decided to create a chart that listed how many of each card I had, and then I did the math of how often would I get each card. It ends up being about 50% of the time when you draw an event card, something bad might happen. Now, you might have good cards that can resolve those actions, you might not, but 50% of the time you'll get something good. So I felt like that was a pretty good balance. When you draw from the event pile, you'll be nervous because what if it's bad, but it could also be good. And then with the regular deck, I made it so that there were more cards that didn't do very good things than really good cards, but I kept it so that a good amount of the time you would still have a card that you were pleased with. After that, I printed the cards out on cardstock. I work at a church, so I was able to use the printer. I'm very grateful for all the resources available to me. It definitely helped. Once I printed all of the cards out on cardstock, I used a paper cutter to cut out each individual card. And then from there, I had bought on Amazon these Scotch photo laminating sheets. They're really easy to use. Originally, they were made for pictures, but oh well. You place the picture, or in this case, the card right here, and then you peel it off, and then you stick it, and then you have a laminated coat. All of these cards are really solidly made. It's cardstock, and then they're laminated, so they're not gonna like rip or tear very easily. They won't bend as easily. They're pretty easy to shuffle. I'm really pleased with the way they feel, and I think they look really good. So that's it with the cards. That took a long time. Like, it probably took me like anywhere between 15 to like 25 hours to cut all of these out, to laminate all of them, and also designing them. Designing them took so long. I ended up having to look on Google a lot to find pictures for the different things, and I don't take any of the credit for any of those pictures. I found all of them online. I did not design any of that, but I did design the descriptions and what the card looks like outside of the picture. And yeah, in addition to having event cards and your own item cards that you held and location cards, I wanted each player to have their own unique player ability. I wasn't sure if I wanted this to be like you chose a character at the beginning. I wanted it to be similar to that, but I didn't like the idea of you playing as a certain character. Instead, I thought it would be more fun in general if you had a wand. And so I took the same outline that I had previously for the cards that I had made. I made it a little bit bigger. I bought bigger lamination pouches, and I made wand cards. And they look like this. On the back, it has the name of the game, Hogwarts Midnight Mischief. And on the front, it has a description, a picture, and a wand. At the beginning of the game, you would draw one of these, and you would have it in front of you. You could pick however you wanted. After I had all of this, I kind of had ideas in my head for the way that the game would be played, but I hadn't really written them down, so I formulated all of the rules of how to play. It took me a little while, but it was actually really fun. I printed it on cardstock. When I was writing it in the Word document, I was able to choose the booklet option, and when it printed, I just had to cut each one in half, and it made the book. After I cut them, I laminated them, and you can flip through them. They have all the rules. And then in the top corner, I did a hole punch, and then I put a keyring through it. I like the way that it looks. Next, I had to determine a way that we were going to keep track of the round. Originally, I was going to put boxes around the game board that represented the different round that you were on, but I didn't like that because then I would have to do more math and figuring out where these boxes were going to be on the game board. So I decided I was just going to make a simple round keeper. This is what it looks like. You have to survive 15 rounds no matter how many people are playing, and there's like a little jewel that you can place on it to keep track of where you're at. Now, I did have some help doing this, particularly with the tokens and the game board. I ordered those on a website called gameboardmaker.com. It's really cool. The way that they have it set up is you can basically make everything through their website. I didn't do that because I wanted to make more of it on my own, but they were super helpful. I wouldn't have been able to do this without them. I got this little bag. Inside it are tokens that each player has that represents where they are in Hogwarts. The tokens look just like this. They look like the Starry tokens if you've ever played that game. There's 6 different colors. I really like how they look. And then there are a few cards that I created that require a certain token. One of them is Secret Passages. I printed those, I laminated them, and I cut them out. And they're all different colors so that you know which one goes with which passage. And then there's the bead for keeping track of the round. And then these red beads represent the rival or monster event cards that you might not be able to resolve. So that's all the different pieces. Now it's time for the game board. When I first ordered the game board from the website, it was blank. I had it so that it would be completely white. Originally, I was going to paint this, and I was going to make it look like the Marauders map. I realized very quickly just how limited my painting skills were when I was designing the box of the game, which I will show you in a bit. Instead, I decided that I was going to use Mod Podge to put down parchment paper, and I would either paint over that or draw over that. I didn't know what I was going to do until I came across this at the store. If you've never seen one of these before, they are a lifesaver. It's called an invisible grid line poster board. The reason why this was really helpful is because I had already decided how many squares I needed each quadrant to have of the game board, and I also knew where everything was going to be. I had designed that already. But the problem was having each square be accurate, right? I wasn't really wanting to use a ruler. I don't have very steady hands. And so this saved my life. This was awesome. You can't really see it. There's a grid, and it has these really faint lines on it that you can use when you're drawing or writing that help you keep your letters or your grid straight. And so that's what I ended up doing. I used a pen and a ruler to outline the different rooms, the grids, and everything that I wanted on the map. From there, I cut it out and I copied it onto parchment paper. And when I copied it, it only picked up the lines that I had drawn. It didn't pick up any of the invisible lines, which was really cool. And so from there, I was able to just draw over it because it already looked like the parchment paper from the map. And the way that I decided to do it was just keeping it simple, just black lines and then some letters and some words describing the different rooms. And I used footprints to show where you could enter and exit each room. So let's look at the map. So if you look in the top corner, you can see that you begin in one of the common rooms. So there's 4 in all. There's one in each corner of the map. There's Ravenclaw, Gryffindor, Hufflepuff, and Slytherin. And then there are different locations. Each round you roll a die and you figure out how many spaces you can move. And you're trying to go into all the different rooms. Because each time you go into a room, you can draw an item card and add it to your hand. You can see that the grid turned out really well. I'm really pleased with the way that it looks. So that's the map. I actually am really proud of the way that it came out. I tried to put a gloss finish on it, but I couldn't really figure out anything to do that with. I originally had acrylic gloss to go over acrylic paint. Obviously, that's not paint, so it didn't really work. It kind of made it look stained at first, but then it dried, and so whatever. If it's not broke, don't fix it. I'm not going to add anything to it. The last thing that I did was designing the box, and I reused a box that I had gotten for my laptop that I'm currently using. It was the perfect size. It was going to be able to hold everything, and it had the right dimensions. And so I took the lid and I put a primer down for acrylic paint, and I began painting, and I'm very bad at it. I put a coat down of, I think it was like a gray blue. I don't really know. That's what it looks like. It says Hogwarts Midnight Mischief. That's the name of the game. The way that I did that was I found a Harry Potter font, I printed it on paper, the size that I wanted, and then I cut out each individual letter so I had sort of like a stencil. Then I lined the paper up on the box, and I painted over it. Problem was, I forgot to take the paper off, and I just did not realize the paint was going to stick to the paper. So when I went to pull the paper off a few hours later, it got stuck, and it looked really, really bad. It got ripped, it was just messy. And so I decided to redo it, and I just painted over it, and it was just bumpy. It didn't really look that good. It still doesn't really look that good. But then I kind of had an outline for what each letter was supposed to look like and where it was supposed to be, which was really helpful. I am not a good painter, like I've said. And I just painted over those different bumps, and I had the letters basically outlined for me, and that was nice. So this is the final product. This is what it looks like. I'm pretty pleased with it. I was able to use the acrylic gloss on this because it's acrylic paint, and I think it looks really good. So that's my video on designing this game. I'm really pleased with it. I think it looks great. I think she's gonna love it. I'm excited to share with you guys in the next video how to actually play it. Obviously, I don't own the rights to any of these Harry Potter names or locations, so I'm not trying to sell this. In fact, if I had to rate this on a scale of 1 to 10 on the actual amount of money I saved making this, it would get a -12 because it costed me a little over $200. Not practical if you're looking to make a cheap gift, but if you're looking for something that you'll be able to use and will be really meaningful to you and the person you give it to, because then you get to play it together, this was awesome. I would happily do this again as a gift. I thought it turned out really well, and I'm proud of it. Anyways, who's ever in charge of making Harry Potter games, if you watch this video, please, I would love for you to buy this from me, or if we could partner together. Anyways, I hope that all of you have a Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year. I look forward to seeing you guys in the next video. Bye.